I should just start rolling. I just start rolling. So, hey you guys, what's up? Today's video, this week's video, this month's video. So recently I watched a video by another artist, illustrator, Jake Parker. He's a big fan of mine. And in his video, he did a step-by-step process of how to draw one of his drawings, a robot taco that he drew. If you follow him at all, you'll see he illustrates a lot of robotic things, and he takes that take. He did like this robotic take on Disney characters, making all the Disney characters into robots, and then he did food. Anyway, it's super fun. But I found it super interesting to watch his step-by-step process, because he went from like sketching, inking, scanning, printing, like the whole thing. And I was like, oh, I actually learned something. Inspired by his video, I thought that I would do the same thing with you guys on how I make my zines. If you don't know what a zine is, just look it up. It's got a very punk rock history, anti-establishment, you know, the man, that sort of vibe. But nowadays I think zines are more just like, they can be anywhere from photography to comics to art. They can have a message, they can tell a joke, they run the gamut. So they're really, what it boils down to is that they're just small self-published books. And zine is short for magazine, so they don't have to have magazine quality or anything. It's just kind of like a short abbreviation for like a small publication. Now, of course, big disclaimer, like I'm not the zine expert. There's a million different ways to make zines. There's, you know, I'm sure just as many approaches. I'm just gonna show you guys how I do my zines and my entire process from start to finish. So I'm very excited to share this with you guys. I'm super pumped. Let's get to it. Okay, so most of my zine ideas, they just come from everyday life. This particular one that I'm working on is actually inspired by a meme that my son told me. Typically I don't have to write down the plots or the dialogues and stuff, but for this particular one I felt more comfortable kind of paneling it out just to give me a good idea of what needed to be said and what action needed to be happening on each page for each panel. But usually a zine is kind of fully formed in my head and I don't have to write it out. But for this particular one, I found it more helpful to write it. So after the plot's written down, I move on to this stage where I kind of I draw out each page in little thumbnail sketches, and so I'm gridding out each page of the zine. And then I'm going to go in and fill in each page of the zine with little thumbnail sketches of what each panel is going to look like. So I'm literally just doing a thumbnail sketch of the entire zine on my little scratch piece of paper. And here's where I kind of lay out all the panels and see what action's happening in each one, and kind of make sure that the story is being told in a nice fluid way that's not confusing to me or confusing to the reader. So yeah, so here I'm just kind of like filling in each square, what's going to be happening. It's really rough, it's really, you know, it's really the bare bones of things, but it really gives me a good idea of what I need to draw. So yeah, so here I'm just kind of like storyboarding the whole thing out. So now that I got my plot, I got my storyboards ready to go. Next thing I do as far as this video is concerned is I cut the paper. So I draw all my zines analog, so they're all done traditionally with pen and ink. I use Bristol board paper. I have a Bristol pad that's 11 by 14, and I find that if I take an 11 by 14 piece of paper and then cut that sucker in half, that proportionately is a really good size to start with, and it translates well into my zines, because my zines actually measure 5.5 by 8.5 inches, and this 11 by 7 format works really well. All right, so I got my pages cut, but I haven't yet figured out what these characters look like, and so as far as this scene goes, I did some character sketches. The character in this actual zine, you see him when he was a boy, and then we we cut to when he's grown up, and so I wanted to make a character that could translate well from older to younger, or younger to older. But yeah, so here I'm getting my character design under control. You can kind of see it from start to finish here, where I started and where I end up, and then we'll see him both as a kid and as an adult here in a minute. Boom. So cool. So yeah, so now that I got my characters sketches done, kind of know what the main character looks like. On the other page there's one supporting character. It's a girl, but anyway, I finished her too. So now that I got everything sketched out, storyboarded, and I know what my characters are going to look like, it's time to start working on the zine, the actual pages of the zine. I always draw with a red pencil. I used to not do that, but then I saw Jake Parker do it, and honestly, I just thought it was cool, so I did it. But actually, it's helpful in the end because that red pencil will come in handy when it's time to Photoshop the image and scan it and drop that red pencil out. But yeah, so here you see me doing the actual sketches of the drawing. I grid it out, put all the panels down and measure everything and make sure everything's gonna measure out fine. And then I'm drawing in my characters and seeing what's going on within each panel. And then I get my micron pen out and do all my straight edge stuff, make sure everything's nice and clean. And then with my brush pen, I'll go in and start actually drawing the characters and the scenes. Of course, the micron's a more technical pen, so it's perfect for those clean edges and when I have to be really precise. But I prefer to use the brush pen just because it's so much more fun to draw with. But yeah, you see in this actual page, this is the transition in the plot line when you see him go from being a boy, and then we see him later on in life as an adult working an office job. I didn't think about it till later, but this isn't the page that I scan for this video, but it still gives you an idea of what's going on. So after I've drawn the page, we're going to scan it. I don't have a fancy scanner. I just have an Epson stylus. It's 100 years old. I've had it forever. But, it does the job. So I'm going to slap it on the scanner here and sit down in front of my computer. That's my computer backdrop, by the way. It's a photograph from South Louisiana. So that's what all that rubbish is. But anyway, so here we are, opening my scanner. I'm going to scan this bad boy. The most important thing to know is that no matter what you're doing, make sure you scan all of your artwork at 300 dpi or larger. That is just, I feel like, it's just illustration, photography, industry standard. Like, make sure everything is 300 dpi or bigger, and you won't have any problems with anything else, going down the road. But anyway, so I gotta name it. I gotta choose a file it's going into, so that's all I'm doing here. And gonna choose the file to tell the scanner where to send this once it scans the image. And then the name of the zine is tag, so I'm doing like a tag page 3. And then cool. So we're gonna scan this bad boy, and then next I'm gonna pull in the Photoshop, and we're going to Photoshop it a bit. So like I said, the company that I use, their zines, one of the sizes they offer is 5.5 by 8.5. And so here, all that I'm doing is cropping it to that size. So it's a 5.5 by 8.5 at 300 dpi crop. So I'm just cropping the image, making sure it's centered. And then we're going to go in and I'm going to take away that red pencil. So now that it's cropped and centered, let me zoom in here and you can see how that red pencil, you can still see it underneath the inks. So how I fix that is I'll go into Photoshop, convert the image to a black and white image. And once that's done, you can still see some of the red coming out or coming through. But then you'll just go to your black and white filter and you give the black and white filter a red filter. So once you make your image black and white, choose a red filter, and then boom, all those red pencil marks disappear. So then I've got just a nice clean black and white image. Usually the image is a little grainy. It's just not as punchy as I'd like it. So the next step I do is I'll go into my curves on Photoshop. And then in the curves menu box, there's those little eyedroppers down at the bottom. So I'll choose a white eyedropper and choose a white part of the drawing and just highlight it. And then I choose the black dropper and then highlight a black part. And basically I'm telling the computer, this is the whitest white that I want and this is the darkest black that I want. And then it adjusts the whole image to compensate. And then I've got a nice stark black and white clean image. Here at this point I'm just kind of like cleaning it up. There's dust and there was an eyelash that I didn't see on the scanner or from my face. Anyway, so I'm just going in and cleaning up the image, little specks of dust that got caught during the scan. So I'm going to clean all that up. And here I had a pen malfunction on this guy's eye. He looks a little crazy, so I'm going to just clean his eye up real quick and get that done. So here we go. Now he doesn't look so crazy. He looks a little more like I had imagined. So cool. So now we've got it photoshopped and it's black and white. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to color it. Now for this particular zine, I'm going to color it digitally. So how I do that is that the best way I've found out is that you'll make a duplicate image and then you'll go in Photoshop to your blending options and you'll hit multiply. That allows you to basically color on top of your image and not interfere with your ink, with your black lines. And so you'll see me from the next few seconds here just kind of like playing with the color palette, playing with the texture and stuff. The zines in the past, I've done analog, like I've used color pencils or I've used different gray brush pens. But that's sort of the fun that I'm having with making a zine a month, is playing around with different ways to produce them. Especially using color, because usually I wouldn't color digitally, but on this one I just wanted to have fun with it and color the whole thing digitally, and so that's what I'm doing here. But it's fun to experiment and play around, so I kind of know what process I like best. And then I can kind of speak to that as well if someone asks me, like, what's your favorite process? Like, oh, I'd like to do it analog, or I like to do it digitally, and these are the reasons why and why not. So for this zine, I believe I'm going to color it all digitally. And you'll see me here, like, putting down like a base coat of gray using some kind of watercolor brush filter that I've got. And then I'll use the brush pen on Photoshop and go in and highlight and low light and make shadows and kind of play with the lighting that way. On this particular panel, I wanted like a gradient fade, so you'll see me kind of play around with the gradient until I get it right. And then I'm going to go back and erase the character on top of it so he will still pop out of that backdrop and look, it'll look really nice. So yeah, so that's how I'm going to go about adding color to this particular zine. I still like the black and gray color palette. I know it's super muted and it's not bright and fun or whatever, but I just like that black and gray look. I always have. I don't know if it's just because it's tradition or I really don't know, but I really like it. So I think I'm going to go with that gray tone for this zine as well. Okay, so I don't know what my next step is. What did I video next? So, oh, here we go. So, according to my printer, there's each printer, I'm sure, has a particular way they need you to save your document in order for them to, in order for it to translate for them the best as far as printing is concerned. And so, I use MagCloud, and then they need me to save it as a PDF. And so here I'm going in. I have to go to the menu and make sure I hit press quality for printing, and then I have to uncheck that box. And I don't know why, it's just what they tell me to do, and so that's what I do, because I guess it's what they use. It's better for them as far as translating into actual print using their printers. So yeah, so sorry, I'm moving really fast right now. But okay, so second to last step is that I have to make a PDF document in order to upload it to my printer via the website. And so at this point, I've got all my PDFs. I save JPEGs and PDFs of everything. But I've got all my PDFs saved, and I needed to compile them into a document. And so I'm working on a Mac, so this might not translate for everyone depending on what computer you have. But Macs make it super easy to make a PDF document. And so all you do is you find whatever your cover image is or your first image is in your booklet, and you pull it up. Make sure that there's a thumbnail right there next to the image. You'll see like that's without the thumbnail, so you'll click viewing options, make sure that thumbnail is checked. And then once you have your thumbnail checked, you can kind of see that small version of that picture on the side to the left. Then you take your next page and you simply drag and drop it right there. And so that's page 1 and page 2. Then you get page 3, and then you just drag it over and you put it in the order that you want it in your booklet or in the zine, and then boom, then you're just building your zine from that point on. So just, like I said, make sure that they're in the order that you want the story to be told. But then when you're done with that, you should have, everything's in order. Boom, 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 boom. And then, save it, whatever name that you need to save it under so that you can recognize it later on. But then the way that you can tell that it was done correctly is that your little icon in your folder should have this little binder thing on the side of your image, and that shows that it's a PDF document and that it's ready to go. You should be able to flip through it just like a little preview right there in your little window. So now that we got our PDF document made, it's time to upload it to the website. So I use MagCloud, which is MAGCLOUD. That's the name of the printer that I use. It's MagCloud. MagCloud. So hard to say. But they are a subsidiary of Blurb. I haven't had any problems with them. They are super cool. They ship super fast. They print super fast. That's the Mardi Gras zine that I made with them earlier this year. But you'll just go to their website. You hit create. I'll go to design it yourself because I don't use templates, but they have templates you can download. And then so here I'm just going to name my project, and then upload it. And then once it's uploaded, it sends to the printer, and then in a few weeks, you know what? A fresh new zine comes in the mail, and it's amazing. Yep, here we go. Just clicking it, and boom. Okay, so that's it. That's my entire process on making zines. It was a lot of fun to make, and I hope you guys had fun just kind of seeing a little bit of my process. So anyway, I'm gonna get back to work on this month's zine because it still has a long way to go. And then I'll see you guys next time. Until then, take it easy, alright? Laters.